welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 201, and today's date is October 29th, 2013, and the title of this episode is The World Economy is Collapsing Right in Front of Our Eyes. And before I get started, I just want to welcome all the new subscribers on YouTube, and just to let everyone know who doesn't know this already, I do post the audio first on the x22report.com site. When you get to the site, just scroll down a little bit. You'll see a circle with an arrow in there. Sometimes it looks different on different browsers, but if you push it, it will play the audio for you. And usually this is up between 5:30 and 7 o'clock. It takes me a little bit longer to get it up on YouTube because I have to compile it and then upload it up into YouTube, and then they have to process it, and it takes a little bit more time. So if you want to hear it first, just come on over to the x22report.com site, and you can hear it much earlier than YouTube. And for those people who have never visited the x22report.com site, I do have many different things I do on here. I keep a dynamic timeline of the economic collapse. I put Sentinel alerts all day long. I comment on them, on most of them I should say. And if you just click Sentinel alerts, that will bring you to it. If you're on the home page and you see more Sentinel alerts, that will also bring you to the same spot. And I have many other things on the site. You can take a look. And if you haven't joined already, you can go and click on the People. That is a forum of people who are talking about the economic collapse. It is completely free. Everyone there is very friendly, and they, myself, and everyone else welcomes anyone. And if you have questions and you want to know answers to things, that is a great place to go and to talk to people. But let's get right into the economic collapse news. And we're going to go out to Iceland right now. Now, Iceland pretty much told the EU, the European Union, that we don't want to have anything to do with you guys. And Iceland right now is looking to turn itself into a hub for business in the Arctic. And they're trying to build up trade by doing this. And Iceland became the first European country to sign a bilateral free trade agreement with China. And we can see that right now, Iceland believes it's very important to have a free trade agreement with China. Chinese are interested in Iceland and the Arctic, and naturally Iceland should utilize the interests. And we can see that China and Iceland and China and many other countries are all making deals. They are going out to all these different nations, and they are making business deals to support what is about to happen. And on the other hand, we see the empire of the United States not making deals. Instead, they are making war. They are using drone strikes. They are using military force to keep the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. And what else are they doing? Well, the U.S. is also spying on every single nation. And, you know, we can just see that we are headed towards the end game here. And if we look at every other type of civilization, and towards the end, what do they normally end up doing? Printing a lot of money. They become desperate. They start spying on other countries. They want to know what everyone is doing. They use military force to keep what they have in power. And we are seeing this happen right now. It's unfolding right in front of our eyes, and when we look back, we're going to say, holy, it really was happening, and it is definitely happening. And throughout Europe, and if we actually, if we look at Europe and we go back to 1929, right before that, during the 20s, Europe was having a major problem during this period. We look at Germany, we look at many of the European nations, they were in a recession/depression. This is what we are seeing right now. We're not seeing nations that have, 8% unemployment or 9%. We're looking at nations there that have 20%, 25%, 31%. The youth unemployment's ranging anywhere from 40 all the way up to 65%. We are seeing a complete breakdown of the system right now. And this is why all the countries are taking on the white paper, the FDIC Bank of England white paper, and implementing them in their country to have bail-ins. If things are okay and things are going swell, there's no reason to have these type of documents. There is no reason um, to have the IMF out there where they're saying that they're looking at a 10% across the board savings account tax, which in the end will always be a lot more, because if we look back at Cyprus, they told us, they were only going to take about 8 to 10% of the people's money, and they ended up taking 47% of the people's money, and they only said, and if we look back in Cyprus, they said, capital controls will be only about 2 weeks or so. It's going to be a year now. So we can tell, and I've said this over and over and over, government officials will always tell you the opposite of what is going on. I mean, we see this in France. They're telling us that everything is getting better. They're on their way for a recovery. We see this in Spain, and yesterday I mentioned the mortgage, the housing is declining and collapsing. And now what we're seeing in Spain, we're seeing the Spanish sovereign bond spreads have collapsed this week to their lowest in 30 months. And we can see that things are not going well. And the labor market situation is still very poor. We're looking at 25 to 26% unemployment at this time. And things are not getting better in Spain. And we're also seeing that bad loans in Spain are actually on the rise. They are not falling, they are rising. So we're seeing many situations and many indicators that are showing us that things are not going well. Here in the States, we are seeing that consumer confidence fell sharply in October as consumers turned gloomier in their outlook for the future. And we can see this by retail sales. I mean, consumer attitudes drop to 71.2%. They were expecting 75, but now they're seeing that it's only 71. We are seeing many major corporations laying off. The latest one, and I would say maybe 6 reports ago, maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, I reported that Reuters was laying off, and they were going to be laying off for like 500 to 700 people. Well, guess what? Now it's up to 4,500 people into 2014. So we are seeing layoffs all over the place. We're seeing them in Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America kept on increasing the amount of layoffs. We're seeing it in Reuters. And if we go back in time, we're looking at Lucent, 10,000 people. If we look at other things, we're looking at Teva Drug Company, 5,000. We're looking at University of Texas, 500 people. We're looking at SunTrust Bank, 800 people. We're looking at Wells Fargo, another 925. And I'm looking back in time right now to show that there is a huge amount of layoffs that have been happening in many companies. Broadcom Corp, 1,150. Cash Call, 769. BASF, 650. We're looking at Boston Scientific, 1,500. Bank of America, 3,000 by the end of the year. We're looking at Electrolux, 2,000. We're looking at Hotchtiff, 2,000. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I don't know if I did. And there just goes on and on and on, and we're seeing tons of layoffs. And when they're talking about, the unemployment is coming down, these numbers are completely manipulated. Most of the jobs that are being acquired right now are part-time positions. People who are getting laid off from these full-time corporate positions need to go out now and find 1 or 2 or 3 part-time positions, and they cannot even make what they were making before. And we can see this because and I mentioned this yesterday, if their numbers are true and unemployment has continually come down, back in 2011, back in 2012, and here we are in 2013. Now the unemployment's lower than it was back then, right? We would think that retail sales were getting better. and I mentioned this yesterday, but why are retail sales worse now than they were when unemployment was higher back in 2012 and 2011? It makes no sense whatsoever. Now, we understand that they count part-time jobs, but guess what? A part-time job is not the same as a full-time job. You do not make the same amount of money. So yes, someone might be employed, but instead of bringing in 60,000, they're bringing in 30,000. And guess what? They are not spending their money like they did on retail. And this is why we're seeing a lot of numbers in retail come out really horrific. I mean, it's just terrible. And even in the automobile sales, when they try to allow the subprime borrowers to come in and allow them to purchase cars, that didn't even help the auto industry. Right now, motor vehicles tumbled to a negative 2.2 in September. Clothing is down 1.2%. Things are not going well, and I know I said this before, and I say it over and over. Retail stores are closing all across the country. Back in February, they warned us that Barnes & Noble, Radio Shack, GameStop, these major stores were closing hundreds upon hundreds of stores and laying off people. Macy's, Nordstrom's, Walmart and Target are all telling us that the holiday season is not going to be very good. It's going to be really bad, and they're not looking for good retail numbers come this season. And we can see this with J.C. Penney's is having a very tough time. Sears right now, the company said it is now expected a net loss between $532 million and $582 million for the third quarter ending November 2nd, wider than $498 million loss reported a year earlier. So that just tells you something, that things are not going well. And in Sears right now, Sears is completely bombing in Canada. The company is selling off prime real estate there, and they just can't make it. Sales are completely down. Sales are down 4.8%, and the company is not investing in the future, and it is just completely spinning out of control, just like J.C. Penney. And we have to remember, these stores have been around for a very long time. And for those people who are living in Canada, I know we have a couple that just joined the People Forum. If you could just mention something on there about what you see with Sears in Canada, and let us know what you are actually seeing. But what I'm seeing right now is that they're in a complete spiral and heading down, and there's nothing they can do to get out of what is happening at this point. And it just, for the retail industry, it just does not look good. And again, it goes hand in hand. Less people working, less people having full-time jobs. These people do not have disposable income to go out and purchase goods. So if they're not purchasing goods, retail stores cannot make it. And this is going to be the turning point come this holiday season, because again, most of the retail sales come during the holiday, and we are going to see many, many more stores close after the holiday season. Now, everyone should remember this, that the U.S. government bailed out General Motors and Chrysler, and right now they did a $50 billion bailout, and right now the government is booking losses of $9.7 billion on their bailout. So GM, and I reported this on a couple of reports ago, they can't even make their sales quota here in the States. And again, you have to think, why? Why can't they do this? Because the American people are tapped out. Most of the American people have bad credit from all the foreclosures and the short sales and the credit cards they can't pay. Because why? They don't have the work, or they're not making the income they used to be making. And this is why we're seeing this, and this is why they had to say, holy, we need to start doing something for the automobile manufacturers. Let's let the subprime people in to see if this can boost this up. And guess what? It didn't. So we can see all around and everything. And if we just take a look and we look around the world and we look within our country and in our places, I know where I am. If I go to a plaza of stores, I see many, many empty spaces. And let me just tell you, back in the early, 2005, 6, this was all filled up with stores. I didn't see a plaza that had, 15 stores and 8 of them is completely empty, looking for someone to rent them. And as I drive around, I see more and more of this. Okay, let's move on here. Now, if we look around the United States and we look at the cities that are right on the edge of collapse, and we look at the amount of cash that they have on hand, we will see that if something were to occur, they would not be able to pay their bills. And if we look at South Carolina, they have 0 days with cash on hand. We look at Pomona, California, 0 days of cash on hand. Fresno, California, 0.1 days of cash on hand. New Orleans, 2.5 days. Springfield, Illinois, 3.1 days. Allentown, Pennsylvania, 7.3. Chicago, we're looking at 8.7 days. So this is telling us that these cities do not have cash on hand. So if something were to happen, they wouldn't have the money to pay their bills. And what else are we seeing? We are seeing that many cities spend a lot more money than they're taking in. For example, their fund balance to expenditures, negative 27.1%, and that's Detroit. And we understand that because, they went bankrupt and they collapsed. Glendale, Arizona, negative 21.2%. Providence, Rhode Island, negative 3.4%. New Orleans, negative 0.8%. New York, just 0.72%. And we have to look further. What else are we seeing in these cities? Well, the less the population a city has, the less property tax, the less income, the less sales tax to be collected. So again, the population in Detroit we know is very low, and they are a negative 24.5%. New Orleans, negative 21.9%. Cleveland, Ohio, there's a change of negative 16.3%. This means that people are leaving these areas. Birmingham, Alabama, negative 10.6. St. Louis, negative 9.3%. Chicago, negative 5.8%. And Memphis, Tennessee, negative 4.3%. So we can see the major cities are on the edge of collapse. If there's just a hiccup in the system, they're going down like Detroit, and it will be a domino effect among all of these cities. But we have to look further. We need to understand that the big money always leaves first. They don't wait. They leave first. And a couple of reports ago, I mentioned that George Soros, Warren Buffett were pulling money out of the market. And what they're seeing now is hedge funds just unloaded the most stock since 2008. They are leaving. They are leaving the markets. They are out of here. And this is the biggest outflow ever from consumer discretionary stocks. And this is what's happening right now. Always the big money leaves first, and always the little people are left there holding everything, going, holy crap, what just happened? And we saw this during the implosion of real estate. The main people got out of it. The rest of the people who bought really, really high were stuck with these homes that were worth absolutely nothing, and they had mortgages that were double from what the houses were worth. And this is still a problem which is completely not fixed. And how do we know that it's not fixed? Because the Federal Reserve is still purchasing the toxic real estate, and they haven't stopped. Actually, they are looking for a way to increase it, and very soon they will be increasing it because they understand the real estate market is coming down. It's imploding. It's collapsing. And they understand that banks are going to take on even more foreclosures, and they are going to need to up the purchasing of this toxic real estate. Now, Congress is out there trying to pass H.R. 3293. And what this means, it's the Debt Limit Reform Act. It sounds fantastic. It sounds like, oh yeah, they're gonna, redo everything, but that's not what it is. The real purpose is to authorize the government to simply stop counting a massive portion of the U.S. national debt. Can you imagine if you were able to do that? You have all these credit card bills. You have your house mortgage. You have your car payments, and say, you know what? I'm just not going to count my housing mortgage right now as debt. I'm just going to push that to the side, and that's just going to disappear. Well, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to take $5 trillion of the $17 trillion of debt and pretend like it doesn't exist. And this money that they're going to try to do this with has to do with Social Security and Medicare. And again, what they're doing is they're setting the stage to default on Social Security without causing a single ripple in the financial system. And when governments get deep into debt, you know who gets screwed. It is always the people. And this is what, because they don't care. You have to remember, the government doesn't care about the people. They care about themselves, making deals, becoming wealthier, and they report to the central bankers. So the people always get the shaft. We saw it in Cyprus. We see it in Greece. We see it in Portugal. We see it in Spain. We see it in all these different places where the people are suffering. That's why in Spain, people are leaving left and right to get out of the country because there is just no work. We see it in Greece. We see it in Spain, and we see it in France. And actually, in England, we see people that are just fed up with all the taxes and the high taxes. And we are also seeing it in the U.S. People are giving up their dual citizenship because they do not want to be taxed anymore, because the U.S. now has the ability to tax people who make an income outside of the U.S., and people are just completely fed up with this. And again, the warning signs couldn't be more clear. They have already put capital controls on Chase, HSBC, where you can't transfer money out of the country. Other banks are also joining in. Pretty soon you're going to see other capital controls within the country. And again, if we just take a look around, we can see how this is all coming together. Now, how else are we seeing this? Well, I hate to bring this up again, but Obamacare. We are seeing it with Obamacare. Now, the report is out there. Articles are out there. The news agencies are reporting it. The White House knew millions could not keep health plans, even though the president was out there letting everyone know that if you had your health insurance, don't worry, you can just keep it, period. Guess what? I know this is going to be hard to believe. He lied again. But they knew what was going to happen. You have to remember, they created this with the insurance companies. They knew the only way to get this entire thing to work is to do what they're doing. They needed everyone to drop their other plans because the people would be paying too little. And plus, their coverage was too good. It made the insurance companies actually pay for things. So everyone needs to be dropped from that. Everyone needed to be forced to sign up to Obamacare. It's an all-in thing. The premiums needed to double or triple. And the deductibles needed to double or triple. And if you don't know what a deductible is, if you have a $10,000 family deductible, you pay out of pocket until 10,000 is reached. Then the insurance starts paying. But they needed all of this to happen. The premiums to double or triple, the deductibles to double or triple. This way, the insurance companies could provide insurance for everybody. Because otherwise, if the system was the way it was before, they couldn't do it. They would lose money. So now, by increasing everyone and forcing everyone to purchase these plans, they are able to do it. So what did the president actually give us? He gave us nothing. He gave us very expensive, high deductible insurance where the mass majority are paying a lot more money, so other people who couldn't afford, for other people where their premiums were much higher, get to pay what everyone else is paying. So he really didn't make it easy for everyone to get insurance. He didn't make an affordable care insurance plan. What he did was, and this is a very simple thing, just raise the prices, raise your deductible, put a tax on it, so people are forced to join up. That's all he did. He didn't make it better for the people. He actually made it worse. How did he make it worse? Well, you are now paying more taxes. You are now paying higher premiums. Companies now are saying, wait a minute, I don't need to insure your spouse. Let them go to the exchanges. Companies are saying, well, wait a minute here. I am not going to have all these full-time employees. I'm going to cut people's hours and only hire part-time because I do not want to pay penalties, because businesses are penalized with taxes and people are penalized with taxes. So what we are seeing right now is a complete and utter takeover of the entire healthcare system to do one thing and one thing only: to make the insurance companies money, to make the government money by the penalties. And from all the penalties, they have figured out that they will be bringing in about $200 billion from everyone that is opting out of the plans. And this is not for the people. This is not something that is for the people. And they can spin this any way they want, and we can just see that this entire system is a complete disaster. And I've said this in my other reports. When a government, and we saw this in the Revolutionary War, during the Revolution, and this is what they're fighting about, when the government continually taxes, tax, you know it is time. You know that this is the end game and something is about to happen, because the government needs to borrow so much money right now that they can't keep the system going. This is why they're coming up with that, with the HR 3293 to get rid of some of the debt, because they realize that this whole system cannot be sustained. And this is why all of this is happening at this time. Now, Bonner is out there saying that, he wants to repeal Obamacare. And a lot of the congressmen who, I know Bonner didn't vote for it, but other congressmen who did vote for it didn't really read it, now are saying, holy crap, we don't want this now, because they did not do their job. What else are we seeing? Well, we're seeing Bloomberg is out there trying to get the weapons away from the American people. And I've said this before, that we have the UN Arms Treaty, which was signed by John Kerry. The Senate will not ratify it, but Obama will approve it. We also have the gun bill pending in the Senate, and they are waiting for the main event to occur. All these other mass shootings that we've been seeing are lead-ups to the main event. You have to remember, President Obama has already created the executive orders for the UN Arms Treaty and for Dianne Feinstein's gun bill. They are sitting there waiting for these to be passed. And we are eventually going to see a really horrific main event, which you will see Obama, the administration, Dianne Feinstein, all out there right in front of the TV calling for these bills to be passed. And Bloomberg is helping them out, and right now he's equating Second Amendment supporters with mass murderers in his newest campaign. And, he is trying to make the case. He's trying to demonize gun owners, trying to get rid of the rights of the people. And Bloomberg was also out there saying that maybe it is time to change the Constitution because it is kind of old-fashioned. That freedom of speech, freedom of press, the Fourth Amendment where they're not allowed to search your person or your home. That's a little old-fashioned. We need to change some of this stuff. Now, how do we know the economy is collapsing? Well, governments always end up they always end up spying on every single person and government officials all around the world, and this is what we're seeing right now. And it's what is funny, the NSA chief came out and said all the allegations and all these reports saying that the NSA is surveilling foreign citizens are completely false. Well, wasn't he also Director General Keith Alexander? Didn't he also say that he wasn't spying on the American people? All they're doing is continually lying. They also said that they stopped 54 terrorist attacks, and it came out that that was completely false. They maybe stopped one, because as we know, most of the terrorist attacks are caused by the U.S. government, the CIA, Mossad, any of these agencies to push some type of directive through. And right now, they are spying on every single person around the world because they are paranoid, they are desperate, and they want to know what is going on. They are spying on all Americans. They are creating social profiles. I've said this before, and they're continually doing this because they need to know what all these government officials are doing, and they need to take and use this information to bribe them to get them to do what they want them to do. And this is the only reason they would spy on another person. Now, there was a major, massive oil discovery in Australia, and those people who live in Australia, please confirm this. Go on to the people. Let us know what's going on there. What they're saying is the biggest find in 50 years, and right now the media is completely ignoring it. They're saying that the current estimates of 233 billion barrels are just 30 billion barrels shy of the estimated reserves in all of Saudi Arabia. And they're saying this is a huge, huge find right now and can change the way oil and the way everything is done right now. What else are we seeing? Well, we're seeing that Bahrain is having a huge, huge problem right now, and the Washington officials are very afraid of a possible regime change in Bahrain, and not for the better for the U.S. They're looking to oust the puppet government there, and they're very worried because the United States has a major military interest in Bahrain. The Fifth Fleet is housed there, and they have no other real base in the Persian Gulf region, and they are very worried of what is going on there, and they believe that an uprising, which is happening right now, could completely escalate and oust the puppet government in Bahrain. And like I said in my other report, the U.S. empire is completely losing control of the Middle East at this time, and we can see from all indicators that because of their losing this control, that they will need to step up with this event to try to bring war back into the picture to cover up what is actually going to happen. And at this time, we understand Russia and China are making deals, and Russia, Luke Oil, is considering new projects with Iran, and Russia's second largest oil company is considering participation in an oil and gas project in Iran. And we understand that we are seeing many of these BRIC nations making deals and setting themselves up with all these different nations to come out ahead in the future. Now, recently in Syria, we understand that Assad's chemical weapons are they've all been located, they're being dismantled and destroyed, and what has happened is rebels just conducted a new chemical weapons attack near the Turkish border, and people have seen a toxic yellow smoke that followed an explosion, and this chemical attack came from the paid mercenaries and the rebels at this time. So this just shows you they do have chemical weapons, because Assad right now, he's not even in charge of his chemical weapons or his areas. These are all under control of the UN at this time. And we can see that this whole August false flag was just that, a false flag event to get the war started in Syria. And right now we are seeing claims that the Syrian Electronic Army hacked into Obama's Twitter account, Facebook account, and started changing things around, and all the links that a Barack Obama account in the Twitter and on Facebook were redirected to a video showing the truth about Syria. Again, from any type of cyber attack, it is very, very difficult to find out who actually did this, and it seems like they're building up the propaganda that the Syrian Electronic Army has technology now that can do much more damage than they originally thought, and they're continually, pumping up this propaganda. And here we see again that the NASDAQ had another glitch. Something is definitely happening, and the system was pretty much down, and it was not working, and they resumed trading again. But we're seeing many of these glitches, and we've seen these glitches throughout the internet on many various sites and from all over the place. And Israel now is saying that they were just hit by a Chinese, very sophisticated cyber attack. Israel has determined that China contributed to a major cyber attack that targeted the defense industry. Again, you cannot tell exactly where a cyber attack occurs because professional and very sophisticated hackers bounce it off many different servers, and all you can see is the last server they bounce it off of. And again, they're building up the propaganda to China right now. And this is why the U.S. is building up the propaganda, Israel's building up the propaganda, and Israel's also coming out and saying that they have reported a major cyber threat from Iran. Officials said Iran has directed Hamas and Hezbollah to target Israel's infrastructure, including water power and train networks. And you might even see something occur, and this could be some type of false flag, because they would consider this an act of war, and this would give Israel the ability to attack Iran, because the central bankers, the U.S. government, Israel, Saudi Arabia all want to get into Iran and Syria and replace the governments and put the puppet governments in there and put the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency to keep the system propped up. Now, we do understand come this Friday, the food stamp program, EBT, is going to be reduced for many, many people, and people are very worried about riots in the area. And the nationwide cut is equivalent to about 16 meals a month for a family of 3. And if you look across the world, riots always begin typically the same way, when people can't afford to eat. And the fact is that doing this, a family will go an entire week without food each month. And I know from reports and from what people have told me is that the EBT, the food stamp money, only lasts them about 3 weeks into the month, or sometimes 2 weeks. So you're going to see a lot of people that are going hungry, that are going to be very angry, and we could see major, major riots. And we have to think that the government is giving billions of dollars to Saudi Arabia, billions of dollars to Israel, billions of dollars in Yemen, billions of dollars in all the other Pakistan and Turkey. but they cut here in the U.S. the food stamp program. It's funny. I didn't see any of the senators, representatives, the president cut any of their salaries. I didn't see any of them go onto Obamacare. I didn't see any of them make any sacrifices whatsoever. I'm sorry, a strong leader of the people always sacrifices first to show that, you know what, I am with you. I will take the cut. I don't need my $500,000, my $200,000 salary, plus all my investment income, which I'm making $1.2 million. I will decrease. I will sacrifice for the people, and that's why I'm here. But you can see from the leaders, they do not do this. And this brings up another point. They love their power. They do not want to give it up. So what is happening? They have DHS right now, and we can understand why DHS has been created. And for years, DHS has been simulating the collapse of the U.S. financial system. They have been preparing for internal riots. They've been training for this. They've had simulations for this. And they've concluded that any breakdown which leaves people without money, food, or access to government support will lead to widespread violence, looting, and riots on the streets of America. The control grid has put into place to handle what they know is coming. And they spend billions of dollars on food, guns, ammunition, armored tanks to control the population. And we can see that the government looks like they want some type of rioting. They tried to do this with the Trayvon Martin by building a race riot type of scenario, but that never really happened. But they pushed it as far as they could, and now here we are with people that are going to go hungry. And you can see why they want this to happen, because it would be a lot easier for the Obama administration to declare martial law and to take power into his own hands instead of dealing with Congress and dealing with other people and just lock down the entire country. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared.